Hi. Um, a little while ago, I made a video about how to win at Bold Action. And then I put that topic aside for a bit. And I've been walking around thinking about the topic because I lost a few crucial games over this fall, um, which always makes you think, right? It's your losses that teaches you stuff. So I've been running around thinking about what is it that actually wins Bold Action games? And I had a long chat with Michael yesterday. No, the day before yesterday. I was at his house. We were assembling minis and just talking, and I came up with a list of all the things that I think can actually decide a game of Bold Action, and it's way longer than I thought it would be. And I was thinking back through my own backlog of games, what I had won and why I had won those games. I had and what I had lost and why I had lost those games. And typically, the things I'm going to talk about now, when I lose, it's a matter of like three or more of these factors that are against me. And when I win, it's a matter of three or more of these factors that are with me. So I think you can actually use this as a rough guide, and maybe when you're like whining about why I lost this game, maybe think about all of these factors because it's rarely just your dice that abandon you in one game, or it's rarely just that your opponent's list was OP and it's not fair. It's rarely just that. It's typically a combination of several of these factors when you lose a game or you win a game, um, that really are against you or with you. And I think that some of the factors are something you can do something about. You can train, you can work with, and some of them are something that you can't do anything about. And if it's something that you can't do anything about, I think you should not like not focus on them. Um, it's also one of the things that me and Michael have been talking a lot about this fall because of the crucial lost games, right? Um, that maybe when you think about Bold Action, you shouldn't think about um, winning or losing. You shouldn't think about the outcome. You should think about the process, the choices that you make at that precise moment with the information you have. Are they the right choices? That was something that I was reminded of by a video that Caspar sent me, and it's a really good idea. I've been working with it a lot, but since I lost those games, you tend to lose your head, right? You tend to lose and tend to lose focus. And that idea that you shouldn't focus on the outcome, you should focus on the process. That is what I want to talk about. This is all process oriented. This is like make the right decisions in your context of that game with the information you have. And then afterward, when you review your game, stop beating yourself or beating up your opponent for being a whacker, no fun to play against guy. Start thinking about the process and learn from that. That is a good idea. So, here comes my list of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 things that can win or lose a Bolt Action game. Let's start with the one that has made this channel what it is, list building. I started out making list reviews for different tournaments here in Denmark. Some of them I ran myself. The rookie tournaments, I made list reviews, and I did that mainly as a form of promotion. I wanted people to notice the tournament, and I wanted people to be excited for them. So I talked about their lists, and that worked. But it also meant that in some ways I became the guy who talks about people's lists, right? And some people seem to think that you can, with lists, design army lists that will win anything. That some people will break any rules and just win, throwing all like historical reality of fun aside. And in my experience, that is not the case. That you can have list building elements where you can win or lose a bit with your lists. But as I said before, it's only one factor out of 13 that can win or lose a game of bold action. So it's a factor. It is a factor. If you make a list that is well thought out, that is on point with the meta or as a counter meta list, yes, you will get an advantage. And I'll talk more about where those advantages lie in the next few items on my list. But it's not a fact that you can make a list and then win any game of bold action against any opponent. That is not true. So, and list building is, of course, an exercise that some people find distasteful. The historical rivet counters or the fun players, the Danish hygge players, they find it distasteful because you are breaking the rules of fun. You are breaking the rules of historical by taking something that is competitive. You're min-maxing. You're thinking about it as a game and not as if it was real or something that your opponent should enjoy or whatever. So list building can, in some people's eyes, be distasteful. There's also the fact that, and I've experienced this, and now we're getting into point number two. Point number two that can win or lose you the game is how your list matches up to the terrain. There is a fact that I have lost at least maybe four games against top players this fall because of how my list and their list matches up to the terrain we get on the table. It's at least a factor in those losses, and it's an important factor, I think, because some lists are really well suited to some types of terrain, and some lists are really ill suited to other types of terrain. If, for instance, you have 4 artillery pieces in your list, and you can, if you're running dual platoons, you can have heavy mortars and then howitzers, right? That's 4 pieces of indirect fire, and you can even put in a 5th if you find a tank that has a howitzer. So there are some tables where you will be God, where they are so well suited, and you have such an amount of vision down the table that the opponent has very little chance because you can shoot all the time and you can hit. But there will also be tables whereas if you go to them and you see them and you're like, okay, I can see nothing because it's a jungle table and it has 28 pieces of area terrain with jungle vegetation in them, so forests. You can't see a thing. You're not shooting. All game, you're not shooting. So your list can be well suited or ill suited to the terrain. That's one of the things that we are thinking very much about for the Danish nationals, that we are going to have different tables can be okay, but at least for some of the tables, maybe the top 4 tables should be fairly balanced with the terrain, so that we don't get games that are decided too much by how the terrain matches up to your list. And that's actually one of the places where the OP whacker list building guys like myself may come up short sometimes. You build a list that is with the understanding that a terrain will be in a certain way, and then when you get to the actual table, it's not. You will lose, and you will lose hard, because rock paper scissors. If you brought scissors and he brought a rock, then you're going to lose, right? There's also, and here comes the third point, there's also some scenarios where your list is ill-suited for that scenario. We have a very famous example here in our last tournament in Denmark, the Bug tournament, where Benny, one of the WTC, the Danish WTC members, brought a very defensive Luftwaffe defense force, which had deployable terrain, so he could shot down the table. That was a really good list. Benny went on to win 3 of his games, which meant that he came 4th in the tournament because of side missions and stuff. But Benny's list is extremely good defensively. So every time we got an attacker defensive mission where he could choose to be the defender automatically, he would win. But it's really not well suited to attack. So there will be scenarios where he has to attack and he can't. So what does he do? That's a difficult choice, right? So there's scenarios where your list is just ill-suited for it. And there will be scenarios, 4th point, and maybe the last for this video, I'll make more videos about this. There will be scenarios where the terrain is just ill-suited for the scenario. Not that the terrain is bad as per se, but maybe it just doesn't work. Maybe one example that we have from recently is we had a Hold Until Relieved game where one table, it was extremely difficult for one side to get to the center of the table. So what can you do? That becomes really difficult if you can't actually get to the objective, right? So there is something to say with how the scenario works with the terrain, and not just how the scenario works with your list. Right, that was the first 4 points. I'll be back in part number 2 of this series. Cheers.